All right, everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the podcast, Relationships versus Shopping for Lenders. So today we're going to be talking about why in private money it's very important to maintain your relationships, as private money and hard money is all about relationships, hard money a little bit less, but private money is definitely where the relationships are. So I want to start it off by saying, a lot of borrowers think success is blasting their deal to just 10 lenders. But in reality, private money is built on trust and relationships, not just shotgunning your deal to, 10 or more lenders. So, tonight we're going to be talking about why shopping your deal kills your credibility and how to do it right. So, Mickey, why don't you start it off and kind of tell people why blasting your deal to 10 different lenders is just a terrible idea?
Well, I mean, when you go to certain brokers and stuff like that, they all shop it out, or even you as the client yourself want to go to all these different brokers to see what kind of terms and deals you can get. And, I understand why you want to do it, but it can bite you in the butt because what you guys don't realize is hard money and private money. It's a large area, but everybody talks to one another. Everybody has some of the same lenders, and some of the same lenders they don't. But when you shop it out to 10 or 20 or 30 different people, more than likely all those brokers or consultants that you're dealing with, they they have hit one up that already seen the deal.
Or lenders.
Or lenders. Yes. Already seen the deal, or they can take a look because they know somebody is over in this group or that group, and they've seen it around and they ask questions. People talk. And they'll go to the back and say, okay, if this is such a great deal, then how come David didn't fund it? Or how come Cheryl didn't fund it? Or how come, you know, some other group, why didn't they fund it if it's such a great deal? Then they start asking a lot of questions. Even though the deal may be a good deal, but you shopped it around to all these people, and they may not even open up your email that you sent to them or the broker sent to them. But in the other people's eyes, it looks like they looked at it and they passed on it. So they start asking questions, even though there may be nothing wrong with your deal, but it raises questions up. What's the underlying issue? Why didn't somebody fund this already? You know, that's the questions they ask, and it take down your credibility. When I talk to people, I tell people, I ask them how much is this shopped around because it makes it harder for us, okay, to get it done, you know, because now we're competing against everybody else that's out there. And right now in today's financial area they're not competing too much out there. The lenders or the private money or hard money people, they can dictate the terms right now. You know, it's just build a relationship with the consultant or broker that you're dealing with. Pick like one or two of them, maybe even three of them, you know, and build a relationship with them. Because, like, when you guys come to us, Prime Haven Capital, we like to build a relationship, help you take a look at your deal, and if it needs to be restructured or tweaked a little bit, we'll help you out with it. No upfront fees. And we pride ourselves in here to find the right person for your loan. Now, we'll send it out to probably one or two of them so you can compare one against the other, you know, and see what it is. We're not going to shop it out to 10 or 5 or 8 people and so you have a bunch of term sheets in front of you. Because every lender is different. It's the basic documentations you need, but somebody may need something more than the other. Or they may have you say, okay, I need this from you. The other one may say, no, I don't need that, but I need this from you. So you as the client don't get confused either. Okay. You know, and be ready to pull the trigger when you get what you ask for, or close to it.
I like that. Good take, Mickey.
I mean, that's just the way it is because I'm working for you. The lender's trying to give it to you there. And they want to build trust because we want you to come back to us more than just a one deal and done. We want you to come back when you do your next fix and flip, or your next ground up construction, or your next DCR, or your next rental property. You know, we want you to come back, or refi. We want you to come back to us, you know, to get the deals done. You know, so you want to build a relationship because I know you guys as clients don't want to have to sit there every time you do a deal and go through the same stuff that you are doing now in order to get your deal done. You know, so you want to build a relationship with somebody, get it done, you know, and even though you may sign an exclusive contract with uh, a consultant or a broker, but you guys still break it. You know, you're still shopping around with somebody else. And, you know, everybody wants a deal done in 5 days or 7 days. Depends on what kind of deal it is. It can get done, but more than likely, you're going to need at least 2 weeks on an average to get some of these done. You know, so you may have to go back to your person that you have it under contract or an LOI with and say, hey, I need an extension, you know. And also, when you're talking to a consultant or broker for, you know, you give them basic information and you want a term sheet on it. Okay. If you're experienced at this, then you know you're going to need a little bit more than just the basic information to get a term sheet. You need certain things in your executive summary narrative or whatever description you're given to the person. You know, without that, can't get terms. You know, I see ads out there that say, hey, I'm looking for hard money lender or private lender. This is what I'm going to do. Tell me your rates and terms. They don't give no information. How can you give rates and terms on something if you don't know what the numbers are? I can give you a broad range, and that's just the standard. You can look it up online. You know, if you want a true soft term sheet or a term sheet, then you have to provide information. You know, if you don't want to provide the information, then go to what I call a joker broker that will give you basically a line of shit, excuse my expression, or a line of BS, however you want to put it. They're just going to give you basic terms, you know, or they're going to give you something that looks good until you say, hey, yeah, it sounds good. And you go into there and it's totally something different. You know, we pride ourselves, and a good consultant or broker will pride themselves into getting you a good soft term sheet or good term sheet where it won't change too much after that. You know, and those are the guys that you want to do business with. You know, someone that is actually looking after you, not a bank account looking to make whatever they can offer you. You know, because if they're a good person, they want to build a relationship with you. You know, they want to get all your deals. They have you come to them.
Well, good take.
Yeah.
Good take, Nikki. Well, and I just want to touch on that, just like you said, mass, like if you're mass emailing like this your same deal to what, like 10, 15 lenders, or even to like 5 or 10 brokers, it just looks desperate. And it confuses the market, confuses lenders. And like Mickey said, it may look big as a big space, private money, hard money, but it's all one place. It's a small space. The world is smaller than you think. It's true in every scenario. Lenders will lose trust quickly and credibility gets damaged permanently. So you want to make sure that you use that. Private lenders, it's all about loyalty, trust, and speed and flexibility. So yeah, you might want to say, okay, I want to have 10 different term sheets so I can compare the best rates. Well, it's really all going to be relatively the same. You might save a point or two on interest, or you might save a point or two on origination, but it's not going to save you that much in the long run, because you can always refi. and stuff like that. So I would always just go to one or two, and that brings in a long, like, here's the thing: when you're dealing with a long-term lender, consultant, everything, you become partners with them, and then you can do deal after deal after deal. But that brings us to our next point in this: what the role of good consultants and good brokers are. Good consultants, they filter every deal before they even hit a lender's desk. So we package your deal for you. Um, we make sure your credit, your collateral, the story, everything is good. And we bring reputable lenders that we know, that we deal with day in and day out, not just a contact list. So, Mickey, do you want to touch on how we and us as Prime Haven Capital, and why dealing with one good consultant and broker is much better than dealing with like 3 to 5 and a bunch of different lenders? Because when you're dealing with just with one consultant who has multiple lenders that they trust and deal with day in and day out, and are in the field, in this kind of field where you're hitting the pavement, building, finding the deals, getting your money together, getting everything, and we're out here on the back end, basically getting you capital lined up so you can buy that property. So, Mickey, why is it a good idea to go to a consultant like Prime Haven Capital and us versus just going to direct lenders themselves?
Okay. Well, number one, direct lenders, you can find some of them out there, but most of them will deal with consultants and brokers. Okay. Because they get flooded. Going straight to a direct lender, you can get lost in their shuffle. With a broker or a consultant, we talk to them on a daily basis. Okay. So when we send up a deal, we're always checking with them, saying, okay, how are we going along with this one? We make sure that your deal is at the top of their list. Okay. And like you said, David, a consultant and broker should filter the bad deals. You know, filter out the bad deals or help you restructure that deal to take it from a bad deal to a good deal. Okay. Like here at Prime Haven, we listen to all the deals or projects that are coming in. We'll take a look at it and we'll give you an advice on if it's not structured the right way or it could be structured a little better, how to do it there so it's appealing to the lenders, direct lenders, and the partnerships that we have with people, with the lenders and private money, hard money, hedge funds, family offices that we know that it's going to get their attention. Okay. And you want to stick to only one or two consultants or brokers. Okay. And it goes back to loyalty and trust. You know, we get your deal funded. It's easy to get the next deal funded with the same people because now they already funded you once. They know that you know what you're doing. You have an established track record, and it's easier to get the second loan because you're already funded with them. They want the relationships too. They want to be a long-term partner in it. And yes, do we go to hard money sometimes to get the deal done? Yes. But then we can turn around and refinance you out of there when you have a little bit more liquidity.
Sometimes it's about getting the deal done,
You know,
getting and owning the property.
you know, I mean, we are creative. We know how to get you what you need and then get you out of the loan, get you out of that, whether it's in into a DCR loan or a regular long-term loan or a refi, or a bridge loan. We know how to work it so it's in your best interest. you know. But the problem is if you deal with too many brokers, okay, it becomes chaotic. It's even for the lender themselves trying to figure out which one is which. Okay, you know, we pride ourselves into picking out the right partner for your project or your deal. And to get it done, and we see it always straight through the end. If there's a hiccup, we'll be right there with you to help you fix it. And that's what a consultant broker should do. you know, and it goes back to, you know, loyalty and trust. That equals speed, flexibility, and better terms. You know, yeah. So you got to be able to trust the people that you are consulting with or brokering with.
Nick, you want to touch on a real world example of this, where a bad broker versus a good broker that we've dealt with?
Okay. Well, a good broker that we've dealt with is where they pass a deal on to us because they, for some reason or another, they didn't have a network that could do whatever the project may be, or it's outside their wheelhouse. And that broker, a good broker, is they put us in contact with the client so we can talk to them directly to get all the necessary information that we need that that particular broker didn't have. You know, that broker is still kept in the loop. He still is going to get a cut from the project, but a good broker will let whoever he went to talk to the client and get it done. You know, he's kept in the loop on every step of the way. Now, a bad broker is one that you got to filter everything through them. They're the fourth party, I guess you could say, or the third party until you get to the actual client. And everybody knows how information is passed down. You start with the lender, you go to us, we go to that broker, the broker goes to them, and by the time it gets to you, the client, stuff has changed, or he added some stuff into it. And we're not one that when I finally get to talk to the client, that they say, well, so and so said this, that you said this, and then you got to sit there and correct them and make the other guy look like he has no idea what he's talking about, which he actually doesn't. But they try to be the middleman, in the middle, and they actually hurt your deal more than they help it. And they're out for the money, you know, and most of them don't have. I mean, when you go talk about a joker, broker, a bad one, they're basically a referral person, except they want to be in the middle. They don't have a network to get it done. They want to create what they call a daisy chain.
And because finding good lenders that are reputable is not
Yeah.
as easy as people think.
No, it's not. Because there are a lot of people out there that advertise they got money, they got this. It either dries up, or when they get to that final stage, the 11th hour, 59 minutes, going to that 12th hour to close, then all of a sudden they come up with an excuse why they can't fund it.
I've seen this multiple times, all these
Oh yeah,
gurus online. Let me
I've
just
I've I've, I've heard horror stories from a lot of people I've talked to. Uh, you know, so you just gotta trust the person you're with and just ask questions.
But I mean,
You know,
I agree with you, Mickey. The biggest thing that I see is all these gurus online. They talk about private money and this and that, and they're talking about all this stuff. And really, what these gurus online, I think I touched on this last time, but they they talk about private money like it's everywhere, and the institutional ones are a lot everywhere. Like a lot of the ones that we deal with. But what these gurus are really talking about are like independent or small lenders. And what happens to these lenders all the time is because they're dealing with a small pool of money or whatever. And yes, they're more flexible, they're more this, but they run out of money all the time because they have a finite source of money. So they're just passing it from one deal to the next. So you're setting up a deal, they're hoping for the capital to come back. One thing happens for another, capital doesn't come back. So you got to really stop listening to the gurus that just find a relationship, find a retired doctor. Like, you got to go to reputable people. Right, Mickey?
yeah, no, you got to. I mean, you got to feel comfortable with the person that you're dealing with. There's got to be trust there, you know. And if you don't have the trust there, then it's not going to work. I mean, and just like when you're having your deal, you know, some of the red flags that I see when people are shopping it around or trying to get a deal, they try to inflate the ARVs, or they try to fudge the numbers where they're too inconsistency or poor budgeting. So you know we're going to do our homework, and our partners are going to do their homework. So if you try to inflate the ARV, they're going to catch it. They're going to catch the inconsistent numbers quite fast. And same thing with the poor budgeting. If you come in and say, the ARV is 1.2 million, and the numbers don't match that, and when they do the appraisal or double check the counts on it, and it's only worth 800K instead of 1.2 million, they're going to call you out on it. And just like your budget, if you have a poor budget, you're saying that it's worth 1.2 million after repair value, and you're saying that you only have this much money to put it in to get to it. They know what it's going to cost in order to get it there. They're not stupid, so to speak. So you want to make sure your budget is there. And if you got a poor budget, then don't ask for the moon, because you're not going to get it. Because no matter what you do, you're gonna have to have some skin in the game. Okay. And I know everybody wants 90% to 100% to 95%. Sometimes you can get it. Most of the time, you're looking at somewhere between 75 to 85. It's great to get to 90 to 95. If you're looking for 100% of the whole project, that's not going to happen. You can get 100% of the rehab costs and about 85%, 80 to 85% of the purchase price. To get you there, you got to keep communications open. A lot of people start a lot of stuff and say, "Hey, let me see what you can get me for this and whatnot," and then there's poor communication. You don't return calls, or you bring up an issue that should have been brought up in the beginning. Okay, you got to be open and honest with it there, because we're going to find it out, whether it's in title or as we go through. It always ends up slipping out. And you don't want to have it come in right before closing, because that can kill the deal right there. Now we just wasted 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get this thing done, and then all of a sudden it just blew up. Now you're mad because the deal didn't get done, and you get mad at the people you're dealing with because the deal didn't get done, but yet it's because you weren't upfront and honest, and it was poor communication. You don't want to, when I call you up, or David calls you up, or another consultant or broker calls you up from another company when they need something, they're just not calling you up just to say, "Hey, how's everything going?" or whatever. They're calling you up because they need something, or to tell you good news. So you need to pick up the phone, and when we ask you for something, you need to get it to us as soon as possible, because the longer you wait, the closing date gets pushed out further. If it takes you 2 days to get it to us, your closing date just now got pushed back 2 more days. Or more. Depends on the document they need and underwriting. Because if you take a little bit, you take 2 or more days to get back there, we have you at the top of their thing to keep you up there. That just fell down a little further. So now you're not on their top priority, because to them, you're not that serious about getting the deal done.
You gotta ask
because
yourself, you gotta really ask yourself, are you serious about getting your deal done?
Yeah, because you're not getting the documentation we need. Now, I understand if we have to order title or an appraisal or whatever, yeah, that's going to take time. But if they ask you for an updated profit and loss statement, or they're asking you for an updated budget, or if they're asking you for your LLC docs and stuff like that they didn't have, get it to us right away. Take 10 or 15 minutes out of your time, or an hour at the most out of your time, something, and get it to us. you know, because it shows that you're eager and you're on top of stuff. Not that it takes 4 or 5 days to get to us. Then it shows that this project isn't there, and especially if you tell me we got to close in 3 weeks. You know, we got to close in 3 weeks, but yet it takes you 3 to 5 days to get me the documents that I need. That's not going to happen. You know, so you got to have an open line of communication and be ready to get the stuff there. I mean, if it takes a day, it takes a day. When it gets past, when it starts going into 2, 3 days, most partners or lenders start questioning you, well, how fast you want. I mean, you're telling me when this done fast, but yet you're not showing me it. You know?
Now, the one thing I want to touch on, Mickey, is with the inflated ARVs you're talking about, or even comps. A lot of people, they go to Zillow and they look at this estimate and they look at this and that. But I really want to go over this, and I made a video on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts the other day. You guys should check it out. I'll put the link in the bio of this, in the description of this video. But Zillow's estimate is always off by 10 to 15% in the wrong direction. It could be good, or it could be worse. Usually, most of the time, leaning on not correct. And that information is coming from my father, who I've talked about before, Matt Horn of Keller Williams in San Fernando Valley of Porter Ranch. He's been a broker in that area for 36 years. And he's the one that told me that Zillow's estimate is about 10 to 15% off in the wrong direction. So if you're getting your comps or your ARVs or anything, whether that's from a wholesaler that you're buying the property from, or you're just buying it from a regular person or on market, you never, ever use Zillow. You want to use PropWire, PropStream, the MLS, whatever. Talk to a local realtor, but you never, ever use estimate. Right, Mick?
Right. I mean, I would use PropWire and stuff that you said there. It'll come close to it. And while you're on that subject, David, with appraisals and inflated ARVs and stuff like that, you also need to be aware of, a BPO versus a regular appraisal.
Good point.
Okay. When you do the BPO and stuff like that, they come out and they take pictures. Someone's going to come out and take pictures and ask you some questions.
It's just what is a BPO? It's a broker price opinion, and most of the days they aren't worth the paper they're printed on.
Yeah. I mean, some end up coming close. Most of them, what they do is they send somebody out there to take a picture, ask some questions, take pictures of the house, but they haven't walked through the house. The person that's doing the appraisal on it haven't even stepped in the house. They're just looking at pictures. Okay.
Comps.
So they don't really get the concept. When you do a full appraisal, the person that's doing the appraisal is going to be out there walking around. They're going to do a little bit more deep dive into the property than what a BPO is. So when a BPO comes back 3,000 less or 4,000 less than what you expected, it's the way it is. Sometimes they can be spot on. It depends on who's doing the appraisal back at the office. I always tell people if they can get a full appraisal.
Now, if you want speed though, a BPO is the fastest because it can be done in a day or two. A full appraisal on a residential property is going to run you about 5 to 6 days and roughly about $500 to $800. And if you want to rush, it could be $100 to $200 more. If you're doing a commercial, depending on how big the building is, it could be anywhere from 2 to 12 grand, could be more. And that's going to usually take a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on appraisal time. But, if you want to close in 5 days, you're going to be doing a BPO. Now, if you're in like a rural area where we just worked on a deal, the BPO came back three grand short of what the borrower wanted it because there wasn't a lot of comps in the area. Now, if we had done a full appraisal and had the more time, would we have come up to the full 73,000 instead of the 70,000 we got? Maybe not. But doing a full appraisal, which is usually about the same price as paying a BPO, could be cheaper, could be more expensive. It's worth it. But if you want to close in 5 days, you're going to be doing a BPO. But if you're in a metropolitan, heavy ventilated area, BPO is usually fine.
Yeah, I don't want to say don't do a PPO or anything else. It depends on your situation. You know, that's why we always tell everybody to prepare for the worst and get the best. So when you're looking at down money and stuff like that, if you're looking for 90%, have at least 15% set aside, 15 to 20% set aside. That way you got some wiggle room in case something comes back,
Like what
a
just
little
happened,
messed up.
where
You
the
know,
people, like what just happened, Vicky, where the appraisal
yeah,
came back 3 grand short.
yeah,
Oh, now you got
yeah,
to come up
like,
with 3 grand.
yeah, like that one there. Always leave yourself some wiggle room. You know, you can ask for 90%, but make sure you have that little 3 to 5% set off to the side. So if you can't get the 90% and you get 85%, you're good to go. Or if there's an extra or something comes back like what we just had with the BPO versus ever came in lower, that you have that extra money set aside. That it's you don't have to sit there and scratch your head trying to figure out how you're going to come up with the extra money because now everything just changed. You know, so my advice to people out there is if you got a project going on, at least, especially for fix and flips, at least try to have at least 15% down, 15 to 20% down. You can ask for the 90%. If whether we get it or somebody else gets it for you 90%, that's great. Now you got that extra 5% wiggle room. If you're looking for, you know, 85%, make sure you have like 20%.
And because
You
everything,
know,
you got to pay closing costs, which covers origination fees, title. You got to have a couple. You got to have the money for the appraisal, which is going to run you minimum $600. Could be 400, but usually it's about 600, and it takes. So you got to make sure. You got to
yeah,
make sure you have that extra buffer because anything could come up.
yeah. You just want to make sure you have the buffer. I mean, you don't got to tell me or whoever it is that you got 15%. You can say you got 10% or whatever, but you want to be honest saying, look, I can do 15%, but I want 10%. I want to get that 90%, but I can go as low as 85. Well, now that gives us some wiggle room,
And we'll
to get the best deal done.
and we'll fight for you to get
Yeah.
that 90, of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, we will fight to get the 90 and stuff like that, but it's nice to know if we got you 89.5 or 89.9, not quite 90%, that, it's within your wheelhouse, or if we went down to 85, went down to 85%, that, we got you a better interest rate or something to that effect, you know, but every deal is different. The takeaway from this you know, is that you got to trust the person that you're dealing with, the consultant or slash broker. You want to trust them and don't be afraid to tell them the aspects of the job. You know, uh, what you're looking at for your deal, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. You know, and things like that. The biggest thing is you got to find somebody that you can trust. At least one or two people that you can trust,
You do because
that you trust doing the deal.
you want to vet your consultant or broker up front and the lender on top of that they give you. You can as soon as you trust the consultant or broker. I mean, we're out here, we're trying to be trustful and everything like that, but you got to ask questions no matter who you're talking to. But once you do, you want to commit to that path, that one path, and commit because loyalty goes a long way in this industry. And when you're dealing with real estate, you got to commit with one path because they can keep going. Because we can find 10 different types of deals for you. So if you're starting single family and then 2 years down the road, oh, I need a commercial loan for a bigger one. I'm going to multifamily. Great. We'll help you out with both. You need a DSCR, we'll do that. So we can do multiple things for you. And that's why having a good consultant or broker is helpful. because they don't just have one lender. But you want to be, the biggest thing is you want to be very upfront with your credit, your collateral, your timeline, any title issues, anything. Do not hide your weaknesses. And the other thing is you want to really respect the consultant, broker, and the lender's process, because you're asking for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on a deal. It's not like, well, I'm just giving you a car for 30 grand. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money, but hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions is a lot more, because they got to go through foreclosure process and this and that. And it's just not, you got to really respect their time, but you got to also ask questions. Now, let's go to the end of this, Mickey. And, the takeaway is private lending is not just shopping for the lowest mortgage rate on Google. In private money, you're not always going to get the lowest. Now, on DSCR, they're competitive with mortgage rates, but and you can usually get near mortgage rates. And we have somebody that will get you just as good as a mortgage rate. But you don't want to just go out there looking for the lowest rate. Now, if you're doing a short-term loan, like a bridge loan, fix and flip, anything like that, you're not going to get any good rates. Like you're looking at least 10%, maybe 9.5 at the lowest, but usually anywhere from 10 to 12, maybe even as high as 14 if you're going hard money. So it's about who you trust and who you trust enough to wire large capital with. So your relationships are your leverage. You want to protect them. So Mickey, you want to say anything on the wrap up before we get off here?
Yeah, it's just remember, if you go a bridge or hard money, we can get you out of it, or whoever you're dealing with, broker, they should be able to turn around and get you refied or into a DCR loan out of that hard money loan. You know, so you don't have to worry about the high interest rates. You know, and if they say that they can or they have to go somewhere else, then deal with somebody else. You know, because like I said, loyalty goes a long way. We get you the hard money that you need, and then we're going to turn around and help you with if you're going to buy and hold, get in there. If not, get you refinanced out until you sell that property. You know, so there's several different ways that we can get you out of the hard money loan. You know, but that's knowing your consultant or your broker that can do that.
Yes.
You know, and do it in a timely manner. You know, trust goes a long way. You know, and once you get one deal done with them all, it snowballs. You know, when you have another deal, we can go back to that same one and say, look, David has another one. Here's the thing that's great. Okay, boom, it'll go a lot more quicker and smoother because they already lent to you. You know, regardless if you have still one acting loan out against them or you paid one off with them. They're going to say, great, he's making timely payments and everything else. Yeah, we'll fund the next deal. And the process will go a lot quicker.
It will. So
You know,
just to
but I
wrap
mean,
up,
the takeaway from here is trust, find the right consultant / broker, and be honest. Build that relationship with them,
now,
and to go from there, and just don't inflate stuff because they will catch the inflation. You know,
yep. So
and you know, and pick up your phone. When your consultant broker calls you. You know, a text goes a long way instead of a phone call. If I call you and you're busy, just say, hey, I'll give you a call in about 10, 15 minutes or later on this afternoon, but then call. And if you don't, I'm going to call you back. And if you start basically, not answering and stuff like that, you're going to get a text from me and say, are you serious about this deal or not? Because I'm going to call you out on it. I'm going to say, are you serious about getting this deal done? Or are you just, shopping it around or whatnot? Because my time is valuable. I'm going to help you get the deal done. But if you don't want to respond back to me or anything else like that, then, I'm going to consider it a dead deal. And then when you call me back up and say, hey, Mick, I got this other deal. Sorry about the other one there. Your credibility with me is really low because I can't trust you because you don't want to keep opening the lines of communication. Communication is the key to everything. So even if you kill a deal, call up and say, "Nah, Meg, we thought about this. We're going to go ahead and kill it. We're not going to pursue this. We'll give you a call for the next one." I can respect that, but not responding back to a text or a phone call, or if you tell me you're going to call and you never do, that's just plain disrespectful.
It is. Yeah. So I want to wrap it up here, but if you're an investor, please stop shopping your deals like you're buying sneakers. Build one solid relationship and you'll get funded. Now, the thing is, I want to announce we have a name for the book. It is Breaking into Private Money, How Smart Investors Leverage Private Money. And that book will be out on Amazon in the next week or so. 2 weeks at the latest, just finalizing it up. It'll be about 20 chapters. And it really breaks down the industry of private money and kind of how to do it and kind of how to get into it and everything you need to know about it. The book will be out very soon. And just like I said, I will also attach in the description the Zillow video that I did on TikTok and Instagram as well. But yeah, I just want to wrap it up. Make sure you always are going with relationships, just like Mickey said. Make sure you call and make sure you're upfront and honest. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a good day. This has been episode 3 and about relationships versus shopping. Everyone have a great day.